Hey everybody, I'm going to read a verse to you out of the book of Daniel, chapter 2, a very misunderstood passage. And I'm going to read this, and I got Dr. Hilt in the studio. We're going to continue where we left off last week, and we're going to get to this. But let me read this. Daniel chapter 2, I think it is here, verse 43 is what I want. Here we go. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. But they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. This verse is often used by the Nephilim crowd folks to teach that fallen angels are going to intermingle with human women and bring forth offspring. And we're going to show you today that that's not true at all. That is not what this verse is talking about. So stay tuned. Well, Brother Goodwin here, and I'm your host here at Crossing the Spotlight, sitting here with Dr. Hiltebittle. Last week, if you remember, we discussed his chapter in my new book, The Great End Time Distraction, that you can see there. And we're using one of the books here. I got it marked up a little bit, got some bookmarks, and I've highlighted some things in here. In this book, there's a chapter that Dr. Hiltebittle was kind enough to allow me to use in the books. And so we got going on that last week, Doc, and we didn't get very far. We didn't get to the end. But I definitely want us to get to this diverse seed stuff, because this is a key proponent in this whole thing about the fallen angel stuff. They use that verse to try to say that it's talking about fallen angels.
Because that passage, the toes, is the final kingdom before the millennial kingdom.
But before we get to that, we got a couple other things that we didn't get to either, and I want to make sure we hit them. The chapter is called the Genesis 6 Syndrome, UFOs and Aliens, the Sons of God, Angels or Men, Nephilim or Giants, the meaning of mixed seed, and has the delusion already begun? Now, some of these things we already talked about. And we're not going to hit them again and take everybody's time. We talked about interpretation, how to interpret the Bible, make sure we get it right. The fact that the Bible interprets itself here, we talked about all that. And we got to here, and we talked about Genesis 6 just a little bit. And well, let's start with this. And by the way, let me tell the TV audience, I want to make sure the TV audience knows that we have a YouTube channel. All you got to do is go to YouTube, type in Prophecy in the Spotlight, and you'll find our YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, and all of these shows are on there. So if you miss a show, or you come in late and you miss the first half, oh man, I wish I saw that. Well, guess what? It's there on YouTube. You can go watch it anytime you want. All you got to do is have internet, have a computer, and you can watch the shows there. We also have a Rumble channel. We have a YouTube channel. Rumble is like YouTube, but it's a different platform. Some of our shows are on Rumble as well. And in fact, some of the shows that YouTube doesn't allow us to post, we put on Rumble. Also, there's something else that you're missing out there in the TV world. Now, some of you watch us at 11 o'clock Eastern Time on Tuesdays. Some of you watch us at 7 o'clock Eastern Time on Fridays. Some of you don't know that we're on Tuesdays. Some of you on Tuesday don't know we're on Fridays. We're on both times. So you can pick which one you watch. But I also want you to know we do what we call updates. Sometimes we call them a preview. It's only on YouTube and Rumble. Sometimes it's 5 minutes. Sometimes lately they've been 20 minutes.
20 minutes or so.
We get to talking. We discuss some of these things on YouTube that are not on television. So if you're not on YouTube, you're missing out on half the content that we have. So I just wanted to let you know that before we begin here. So Doc, let's jump into this here. Part of the confusion comes from this misunderstanding of time and the gap theory and when angels were created. You said this in the chapter. The error is trying to somehow place the creation of an angelic host within the framework of time and creation. And I'm glad that you got this, you got an understanding of this, because I wrote about this as well, and I'm with you. But I'd like for you to explain a little bit about this from your perspective.
Well, first of all, was God not doing anything pre-time, in eternity? Was there no angels of service or anything? Here's the thing. Angels don't, the Bible is clear, there's no flesh and blood. Flesh and blood doth not inherit heaven, and so angels, apparently from the Bible, don't have flesh and blood.
Nor do they have an inheritance.
Don't have an inheritance.
Angels are flesh and blood.
Yeah. Humans are flesh and blood. Flesh and blood is in the realm of creation. Angels don't have that. Angels are an eternal being. They are a spirit, a ministering spirit. They're not of the physical entity of things in creation. We are the result out of the materials God brought into existence on day number 1, hydrogen and oxygen. We call it water.
Now, you're not saying that angels weren't created.
Oh, no, they were created by God.
Because Isaiah, I think it's Isaiah, in the day that was created.
Evidently.
What you're saying is the day he was created was not part of
Not
Genesis.
a part of this time.
Right. So Genesis 1, the creation story, does not include the creation of angelic beings.
I'm convinced they were already there.
Right.
They were all. That's one of the reasons why they have such an understanding of our creation. As an eternal being, they were there observing when God spoke and brought it in. And the Bible is clear, Jesus is the creator himself.
Now, people often ask me, well, when was Satan created? And I'll say, yes. No. I mean, when did it happen? Yes. There is no when outside of our universe.
Outside of time.
There's no time. There's no past, present, future. None of that stuff.
Right.
We can't understand that, but
it's impossible for us to understand.
I included a chapter in here, the mystery of time, for that purpose. Because of
well, verse number 1 tells us when time begins. In the beginning.
In the beginning.
That's the beginning of this creation, which has a beginning point and an end. That's what the Bible means when it says of Jesus in Revelation chapter 1, verse 8, the beginning and the ending, first and the last. Of what? Time.
See, most people think in the beginning means the beginning of eternity, the beginning of God. It's not
no,
it
it's
at
the
all.
beginning of this creation.
God has no beginning.
And verse number 1, you get the 5 basic things you got to have in order to create any kind of a test as a scientist. They're all 5 of them are right there in the very first verse.
And you've talked about that before.
Yes.
On here. Okay, and you got some stuff about it is evident about there's no gap theory. We won't get into that again.
There's no gap between verse 1 and 2, because verse number 2 is an explanation of the condition of the materials God brought into existence on day number 1 in verse number 1.
And I wrote down the bottom here, because you're talking about science and things, and I wrote down here, oppositions of science, falsely so-called. Mm-hmm. He's not saying that all science is false. He's saying there is false science. There is stuff that's said that is science that is falsely so-called.
Right.
Science always, if it's right, will go hand in hand with the Bible.
Absolutely.
Will not contradict Scripture.
You know, and we need to encourage our folks, if you're interested, you do a little research. Look at all the discoveries of major things in whether it's health or medical, all the major discoveries. Find out how many of them were evolutionists, and you'll be shocked.
Yeah. And again, we keep talking about evolution. The purpose of evolution is to
get
exclude
us
outside
God,
of the
Bible.
God. Get us to
Let's go outside and get rid of that Bible.
Yeah. The angelic world was not a creation. I'm reading from you now. The angelic world was not a creation within time, but are eternal beings outside of the framework of time.
Yes, sir.
Man is living or forever alive. Is a living or forever alive soul that is eternal, but dwells within the earthly tabernacle of this creation. Yep. And the principle of lost state on day 3. And this. All right. So after their kind is next in the book. Yep. I highlighted here. Just take just a few seconds about that. After his kind.
The tree was made with the fruit on it and the seed in the fruit. It was the whole cycle was put together at the same moment. Yes, and everything reproduces after its kind. It's the DNA within the seed that determines what the fruit's going to be.
And
it's not the fruit
right.
that determines. It's
And
the
so-
DNA of the seed
And you
that determines.
cannot cross that line.
You can't cross the line.
Not science, not with science, not with.
And
It's not scientifically possible. It's not biblically possible.
Even in the science lab, when they do these type of things and try to do it, any mutation that is made of a blending of a kind never has the ability to go beyond that moment.
It can't reproduce.
It can't
have
reproduce.
babies.
Because it can't reproduce, because it's not of its kind.
God designed it that everything bears fruit after his kind. A giraffe cannot mate with a dog. A horse cannot mate with a cow and bear offspring.
Nope.
It's just not. And the point is, an angel, if it could reproduce, which it can't.
No.
There's no such thing as baby angels.
It's an eternal being without flesh and blood, and here it is trying. No, it's not possible.
Yeah, and how can something with no flesh and blood create a baby in the womb?
That requires the blood of the Father.
The blood of the Father.
For the seed.
Blood of the mother never enters the veins of that baby.
Depends on what you call the seed, I guess, in Genesis 3:15.
So Satan would have to be a creator. He'd have to create life. He'd have to create blood. Impossible. He's a counterfeiter. Folks, I don't know what's so hard about this. Every time we bring up a certain subject, it's another nail in the coffin.
And
any one of these
right out of the
ends
book.
the story.
Right out of the book.
Hebrews 1:5 is the end of the story. Unto which of the angels said I at any time, past, present, future, any time, thou art my son. Angels, not sons of God. Period. That's the end of that story.
Should be. By letting the Bible be the authority,
yeah.
yes.
And
but if we want to let external books be the authority, it's
all right.
or Dr. So-and-so.
Okay, so the book is on the website, ProtestantSpotlight.com. You'll see the book there. You can go there and order it if you don't have it already. We want to help you. We're not trying to hurt anybody. We're trying to turn the light on, the light of truth, and help people see
Absolutely.
the truth of this thing.
It.
Well, Doc, that brings us to the mixed seed, and we still got some time left. Good. So this is important, and we started the show with the verse in Daniel chapter 2. They shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. They're trying to tell us the they there is angelic beings,
right?
And it is not. I'm convinced it is not. You're convinced it is not.
Nope.
Now I want you to convince them on out in the TV world and YouTube world that we know what we're talking about.
Well, the mixed seed, when you put it in its context in Daniel chapter 2, you're talking about the mixing of the seed of men with other men. It's the kingdoms trying to amalgamate into a final kingdom.
Okay, so let's stop right there because that brings this. Number one, angels don't have a seed.
No.
I mean, everyone goes to Genesis 3:15.
Right.
I explain that in great detail in the book. Satan no more has a seed than a woman has a seed.
That's right.
Because the same verse, Genesis 3:15, says the seed of the woman.
Yep.
The seed of the woman is God's seed, not hers.
That's it.
The God places in her at that moment, the virgin birth, we call it. What they're trying to tell us is that Satan has a seed just like God has a seed.
No.
And he's placed his seed in millions of people for thousands of years, thus belittling and lessening the miraculous virgin birth that we preach.
Yep.
Satan's been doing it for thousands of years. What's the big deal?
No.
That God did it. No big deal at all. It's a big lie, isn't it?
It is a...
Satan has no seed. How about DNA? Does Satan have DNA?
Evidently not.
No, because it'd have to be flesh. It'd be tangible, right? Some kind of flesh and blood. No DNA. All right,
the key in Daniel chapter number 2 and verse 43 is the word they. It's not an outside entity that's coming in, but they are the political unions trying to blend themselves together for that final kingdom.
All right, we'll set the stage. You're talking about this statue, right?
Talking about the statue, which is the final kingdom, those toes, the 10 kings, or you go to the book of Revelation, it talks about 10 kings. And so this is the two the 10 toes trying to pull themselves. It's the
So
final
it's
Gentile
the 10
rule
toes
of the world.
that are mingling together.
Yeah, they're trying to come together.
Those aren't angels. Those are people in that final
They're
kingdom.
the they. And so then you come to the word mingle. And when you go back and you will find, in order to understand the word mingle, you find Ezra, after they're rebuilding the temple and the wall. You remember the story of Ezra and Nehemiah? Well, Ezra says, look, he said, so that the holy seed have mingled themselves with the people of those lands. It's not seed mingling with something outside of its kind. It's different individuals or different political groups. In the case of the people of Israel, they'd been intermarrying with the Canaanites all around them, and they're polluting their seed. So the seed is not something from an outside entity, but it's the seed of men mingling with other seeds of men.
Boy, there's so many principles that they're breaking by jumping on this thing and claiming these are
Absolutely.
angels.
Yes.
They're claiming angels somehow have flesh and blood, because how can something with no flesh and blood bring forth a child in a human woman that takes flesh and blood? The life of the flesh is in the blood.
That's right.
Now, that's not said about angels. Angels don't have blood. Ephesians 6 is very clear. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. It's talking about the principalities, the powers of the air.
He gives you 4 levels of the Luciferian kingdom there.
So Satan has no flesh and blood. So how could he mingle here? He has no seed. The fallen angels have no
Keeping
seed.
it in its context.
There are no baby angels.
These are the best, if I remember, these were the only 2 places where in your Bible it talks about mingling of seed. And both of them have the same exact meaning. It's the seed of men mingling themselves together for a purpose, either a delusion or the political union in Daniel 2.
Well, I talk about some things in my chapter here about diverse seed. I have the same passage of Daniel chapter 2, but I also have Daniel 7 that talks about the diversity. Now, I think it's the same thing, but it's using the word diverse.
It's using the diverse.
In other words, different.
And they are diverse.
Yeah.
I often tell folks in prophecy conferences, to me it's pretty obvious. I mean, you had 2 iron legs, and that was the Roman world. And the reason it was 2, because they're going to divide. They're going to have 2 headquarters, one in Rome and one the Byzantine sect over in Constantinople.
Yeah.
And so what happened? The Byzantines lost it to the Islamic crowd, and today you've got the toes, and you got the people out of the Islamic world that are now invading back over. The iron and the clay's not mixing together, but it's the seed of men. It's not some they from an outer entity.
Now, I mentioned in my chapter the falsehood here that's been shoved down our throat about diversity.
Yes.
They're making laws about it. You got to hire so many of these, and you got to do this. They want diversity, but the problem is diversity doesn't strengthen a nation. It weakens.
It always weakens.
And what do I mean by that? I'm not talking about skin color. I'm talking about cultural differences.
Yes.
Language.
Philosophical differences.
Language. My goodness, you get 3 people in a room and you're trying to operate a piece of equipment, and one guy, his language is broken English. Yep. Another guy barely speaks English at all, and you're going to have a problem there.
Well, that's like calling to get technical help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What can I do for you?
Yeah.
And you can't understand them. But you know,
but
cultural
they're
differences.
they're all the seed of men.
Yeah. But you get an army together. You get a bunch of guys of different religions, different cultural. They eat different. They think different. And that weakens that army.
Well, look what's happened in our own Congress. The sect that we have, they call the squad up there. Look at how they are changing the whole diameter and weakening our nation.
Because their diversity is in an
diverse.
area that's anti-God, anti-U.S. Constitution.
Yeah.
And so that weakens the Congress.
And then you got you got all these segments that are what you're talking about, and all of it causes weakening. It never strengthens.
Yeah. He said in Daniel 7, he said, Daniel 7:7, I saw in my night visions the 4th beast, dreadful and terrible. Mm-hmm. I'm going to skip some of this. He had great iron teeth, devoured and break in pieces, and stamped the residue of it with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. Diversity.
Yeah.
they tend to take this word diverse and they use that, they try to make it out like it's half angel, half man.
No.
That's not what these are talking about at all.
It's trying to illustrate the fact that the final kingdom is not only of diversity, but it is different in its purpose and makeup than the kingdoms before.
Well, think about it. Before, all the other kingdoms were one nation.
Yeah.
Those final ones are the
This
nations
final
of the
one
world.
is the global, and in my pandemic DVD, that's what I try to help other people say. We're headed down that road to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you get down to verse 23 of chapter 7. The fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms. Mm-hmm. And that's that fourth kingdom that's going to revolve
the Antichrist kingdom.
It's going to evolve into the Antichrist kingdom, right?
Yes.
And diversity. It's not that difficult. I understand. I say this: we see they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. And this is what the verse we were just talking about in Daniel 2 there.
Yeah.
And I said this: the last kingdom is made up of all the qualities of the first four kingdoms.
Sure.
In other words, it has many ethnic and cultural differences and customs. And I could go on to say religions and all kinds of things, and folklores and
philosophies.
Philosophy. After all, it is a kingdom made up of the whole world. Because of this, there will be a diversity of language and an array of differing opinions and values. Values, that's important. Value systems are different.
They got to have a common cause that brings that together.
Look, a lot of the Muslim folks don't value their women,
no,
like Christianity does.
No way.
Does this sound like what is going on in Europe right now?
Mm-hmm.
It is happening in America right now.
Yes,
also.
it is.
Immigration to America used to require assimilation into society by acquiring a skill and learning to speak the language. This is no longer the case.
No.
You have whole communities in our country where they don't speak English.
I live in rural southern Illinois. I mean, we're rural. And you go to the ATM machine in our little bank in our little town, and you got to choose English if you're going to, or Spanish. We don't have a Spanish person here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's 300 on the sign.
It bothers me every once in a while when I have to punch English. In America, it ought to be a given.
Yeah. So I hope the audience is getting what we're saying here.
Yeah.
This is another nail in the coffin.
It should be.
This diverse seed. Talk about you mentioned in the book here. I'm trying to find it, that the phrase is only used once, and the other phrase is only used once. And let's see if I can find that. The seed of men was only used one time.
Jeremiah 31:27, the phrase "the seed of men," and only found in Daniel chapter 2:43. Those are only two places where the phrase "the seed of men."
Okay. And of course, if we'd back up and realize that angels don't have a seed, we wouldn't even have to discuss.
Wouldn't even have to be
we
discussing.
Wouldn't have to be
this.
trying to help people.
We
with
really
it.
shouldn't have to be discussing these things, but
face it, angels do not have flesh and blood.
No.
They're spirit beings. Jesus said of them, they neither marry nor. He said the people who die on earth and go to heaven, they don't marry nor are they given in marriage.
Yeah, but the book of Enoch doesn't teach that.
And then he further explains it, but they're as the angels in heaven. In other words, the angels in heaven do not marry.
You haven't read the book of Giants.
I haven't. I have read some of the book of Enoch. I hate
There's something about just reading the book. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because it's the truth.
Well, my point is, angels are spirit beings. They have no flesh and blood.
I'm being facetious.
I know you are. They have no flesh and blood, so they can't bring forth an offspring. But the point is, angels don't bring forth baby angels.
No.
They don't procreate in heaven. I don't believe they're made with organs, sexual organs. I believe they're genderless, basically.
Yeah. They're always referred to in the masculine gender, but that doesn't mean in
as
the
is
same,
God.
As is
but
God.
But God wasn't male and female.
No.
There's no, he created man, male and female. Doesn't say he created angels, male and female. No. Now, true, it doesn't say he didn't, but doesn't say he didn't create 300-foot tall cows either, but he didn't.
No. Well, that's the thing.
People often say, well, it doesn't say he didn't do it. Well, my goodness, what kind of logic is that?
We shouldn't have to be even discussing these things.
Angels do not
But in our
have
world today,
baby angels with other angels.
No, it can't be.
So therefore, God wouldn't have made them with reproductive organs. Isn't that good reasoning?
No reason for them.
Yeah.
They're ministering spirits.
That would be
Bible
like
says.
creating a person with gills that was never going to be in the water.
Yeah.
God wouldn't give you gills because he didn't create you for the
Well, if you
water.
was an evolutionist, you realize that finally we lost those gills.
They're saying that these fallen angels somehow acquired something when in the fall of their beings.
They somehow or another evolved, I guess.
They somehow became able to create life, have a seed, have flesh and blood, because the life of the flesh is in the blood. That baby has to have blood, and so now they can create. Even the good angels can't do that.
Well, let's ask our folks watching a question. Do you really believe in evolution? You say, well, I don't believe in evolution. Well, if you believe that angels changed their ability from flesh and blood, what's the difference? They had to have evolved to it. What's the difference?
See, they use that verse, Satan himself forms himself into an angel of light. They use that to say that these angels can turn themselves into humans.
That's not what that verse in its context is talking about at all.
No.
It's kind of like your chapter you had a while ago in Job 38. It's metaphorical.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a shame that we're here.
They say this, well, an angel, they can overcome it, they can indwell them. And they can to some degree.
But that doesn't alter the DNA of an individual.
And I said, look, so let's say
it doesn't change the offspring.
Let's say a guy yields himself to satanic powers and gets kind of indwelled, and then he has relations and creates a baby. Guess, is that an angelic baby? Of course not. He's still flesh and blood. It's his flesh and blood. And the baby's his, not Satan's.
Yeah.
Goes back to that stupid movie,
that
1968.
stupid movie, Rosemary's Baby or whatever it was. Yeah.
There's only one thing true about that movie. It's a fictitious movie.
Yeah.
And I have that in the book. That's the only thing true about that
That's
movie.
a good
By the way,
statement.
a Catholic movie. And I'm convinced
Yeah, it's all about exorcism.
And there's got to be more study on this, and we're out of time, but I'm convinced a lot of the foundational things about this topic are from the Catholics. But we're out of time.
Yeah, we're getting close, aren't we? Yeah.
Folks, do you know Jesus as your Savior?
Amen.
Are you ready to meet God? He's coming soon. That trumpet's going to sound, and you're going to die. Either you're going to be raptured or you're going to die. Either he's going to come in the rapture and take the Christians away, and it'll be too late, or you're going to die and go to hell. Would you like to be saved? If you're not born again, I get a hold of us. We'll help you with that.
Yes.
You need Jesus. Well, that's all the time we have. Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies.
Amen.